get onto probably the most panned superhero movie ever made. If you don't know, I'm going on a little Fantastic Four retrospective to celebrate the release of Fantastic Four: The First Steps later this year, so watch this video right here to catch up. Basically, after The Rise of the Silver Surfer came out, box office returns weren't bad, but not good enough to warrant making another sequel, so instead, the studio tried to reboot the franchise. And originally, it looked like plain sailing with a very young and exciting cast, and director Josh Trank, who was at the time going to be part of the new Star Wars team, when that actually meant something. So the future looked bright for the Fantastic Four, but then information started to leak that this movie was gearing more towards body horror and a dark and serious tone, which is a massive difference to the fun and colourful people the Fantastic Four are. Also, news came out that Josh Trank is an idiot who ordered his dogs to eat the apartment he was staying in, and also was so erratic on set to the point where he wasn't even allowed to finish making the movie. So the studio pulled out all the stops to change this weird mess of a movie, ordering extensive reshoots only months before the movie's release date, to the point where the actors hadn't even seen the movie.
How much do we get to see? We get to see you in kind of the more iconic, familiar suits by the end, yes?
I would say go by what you see. I think at this point our suits are out there, you know?
And with that, this piece of garbage was born. Now, everyone knows that this movie is bad, but I've always had a morbid curiosity with this movie and wondered why. So I watched it and
I've decided that I want to die.
It is embarrassing. The narrative is non-existent and barely even coherent. The characters and cinematography are so bland, and it is so devoid of any sort of substance to the point where the fibers in my muscles and brains were so numb that they were unable to work. I'm not joking, I was literally a mix of the Nutty Professor's body with the brain of Patrick Star. I nearly even cancelled this video because I genuinely couldn't bring myself to rewatch it or talk about it because I felt I couldn't put into words why this movie is so fundamentally broken. But I haven't come this far for nothing, so let's get through this before I have a mental breakdown. Weird. So in the first scene of the movie, it shows us that Reed wants to build a teleportation device. Now, the first thing I have to say is, why does an 8-year-old Reed have such an obsession with building one? This movie carries the trend of the first, where characters just do things for unexplained reasons. Now, this may seem really insignificant, but it's actually really important because it's the focus of the movie for the first half. Anyway, so in the process of building the time machine, he goes to the scrapyard for some reason, where he finds Ben. And Ben, for some reason, goes along with him to see his time machine. 7 years pass, and they're still doing it. Now again, this on the surface is not a big deal, and it kind of feels like pointless nitpicking. A flashback to a character's past can help explain why they are the way they are in the present. But this flashback tells you nothing about the characters. You think, why does Ben go along with helping Reed build a time machine for 7 years? It's kind of hilarious considering he has no interest in science. The movie doesn't actually show him enjoying Reed's company because all the actors in this movie genuinely were told not to emote, and he gained nothing from this. So this flash forward just proves that he's been working on a time machine for the past 7 years despite having no reason to do so. Oh yes, and let's not forget, we know absolutely nothing about them. It's like in all these movies, the writers have an allergy to making fully formed humans, and it's so weird. Superheroes resonate with people because they're relatable. Obviously they're fun and charismatic, but at the core of most comics, there's so many relatable themes that are universal to everyone. Good versus evil, personal sacrifice, redemption, but only in superhero movies that are on a larger scale. Take a look at Spider-Man. He's a nerd. He's got problems with love. He needs to learn how to be a good person. You know why with great power comes great responsibility is so famous? It's because it's something that everyone can agree with, which through the power of storytelling is presented in an obviously unrealistic but provocative way. But to do that, you need to make characters that feel like people and have arcs, personalities, and motivations, which these movies just always choose to skip over. Also, this makes our characters so brain-dead boring. Like I said, we're meant to buy Ben and Reed as lifelong friends, but they never actually seem happy when they're together. There's no scenes of them actually enjoying each other's company. In the scene after this, Reed goes, "I couldn't do any of this without you, buddy." But they don't even tell us or show us what he did. I complained about the stock phrases and the corniness in the first movie because it felt like tell not show. But this movie doesn't show any arcs, motivations, or personalities, or even tell you. It's not even tell not show, it's just nothing.
Congratulations. You're a failure.
It's like if you wanted to make a cake, but instead of actually baking it, you choose to serve the individual ingredients. Also, like I said before, the actors in this movie barely say anything and don't emote. You could argue that these actors are just bad, but they clearly have the ability for emotional depth. Miles Teller in other movies goes like this.
Look, why don't you just tell Fletcher that I'm coming, you motherfucker?
And Michael B. Jordan goes like this.
Indingo and Jadaka.
But in this movie, people's brains are being exploded inside their heads and their expression never changes. It completely contributes to the experience of this movie just being a numbing experience because the characters don't feel anything about anything changing, so why should you? Anyway, at a science fair, the demonstration of their teleporter causes the basketball hoop to blow up, and Susan Storm and her dad is there at the presentation, which one is really weird considering he doesn't actually have kids going here. Like, my man, what were you trying to achieve?
Wait a minute!
But then, a confusing scene happens. So the teleporter brings back a plane that has weird orange dust particles on it, and then Susan's dad's like, oh my days, that's dust from another dimension. And then he hands Reed a full scholarship to work on the teleporter to get to Planet Zero. What the f***? Why does this guy hire a teenager to work on government technology that costs billions of dollars with no proof? His reasoning for hiring him is the plane that they teleported has dust that is a similar color to the one on Planet Zero, but he hasn't even tested it to make sure it's the same kind. It could literally be dust from the Sahara Desert. He doesn't even make sure to test the exact same particles, even if that is his only motivation for hiring Reed, because the dust he found on the plane. Why? Also, we the audience doubt if Reed is even bright enough to work on a tunnel to another planet, considering we're not even shown that he's smart. All we know is that this man has a boring and insane desire to create a time machine for no reason. This movie gives us no scenes explaining his brilliant mind, yet it assumes that it makes total sense why a stranger who doesn't even know Reed would instantly hire him to work on a top secret government operation with billions of funding to access a different fucking dimension. Just why do the scenes in these movies fail on basic logic? I just don't understand anymore. They had like 19 screenwriters working on this movie, and none of them thought to give our characters traits. And here is our intro to the rest of the squad. Well, apart from Susan Storm, because this movie just forgets to introduce a character at all. Starting with Dr. Doom. For some reason now he's like an edgy scientist, which from the comic book standpoint is really stupid. As I said, Doom is like a character so large in scale that reducing him to an ordinary scientist is embarrassing. But within the movie, the scene establishes absolutely nothing about him. Susan's dad goes to him and says, we need your help to work on the project, and he says, actually no, I'm not working for the government. But then he asks, is Susan gonna be there? And then he just goes.
Bye, Felicia.
It's like something has been cut out. We don't know why he hates the government because it's not explained to us later in the movie, and we don't understand why he likes Susan because again, it's not explained. Also, I repeat again, what does this tell us about the character? Another thing that's really weird is that at first, Victor seems to not like Reed because he's getting closer to Susan, but then after they build the teleporter, everyone just likes each other. It's like they skipped the part of them actually learning to enjoy each other's company. Then they give us the intro to Johnny. Whoa, he does car racing. He's a rebel, guys, don't you get it? I am dying inside talking about this movie. Anyway, Johnny crashes his car like an idiot and then his dad needs to give him the talk. And it goes how you would expect. You need to get your life back on track, son. I don't want to. I want to be edgy. You have so much potential. What are you doing with your life? Screw you. Okay, if you want your car back, work for me on the secret teleporter that can only be accommodated by the brightest minds and needs precise technical skill. Otherwise, we could all die. What? Why does this conversation veer from Johnny, you need to get your act together to work for me on my secret teleporter? It's such a weird decision. Johnny's motivation to help the team on their project is to get his car back. That is so stupid. Now, if you haven't realized by now, this movie is just miserable. They streamlined the movie to get rid of any exposition so these characters are just dead inside, but also the cinematography and color grading is absolute poo.
He was so ugly that everyone died.
It looks so boring. There's no movement, they don't even focus the camera on the person speaking, and instead all we have to focus on are a bunch of dead expressions. What am I actually meant to enjoy out of this? At this point, I am missing the original Fantastic Four movies and it's only been 25 minutes. After this, they build the time machine with generic industry scenes that don't mean anything. Also, by this point, you may have noticed that Ben Grimm has just been booted out of the movie and is completely irrelevant. Yes, one of the Fantastic Four are not even in the movie. If that doesn't tell you how bad this movie, I don't know what will. And And then we have a wholesome interaction between Susan and Reed. But then Victor's mad for some reason we're never told about, so he tells Reed to get his head in the game. But then Reed tells him we finished the time machine without you, and then it goes into a scene showing how the teleporter worked. And you might wonder why I'm just telling you what happens, because it's really hard to put into reasons why this movie just makes no sense, because when I say everything that happens, you just realize the narrative doesn't work. The movie does this thing where they include one or two scenes that make it seem like they're going to develop a plotline, but then they just completely drop it with no resolution. And this is really weird considering I'm pretty sure that this part wasn't heavily tampered with reshoots, so this was a conscious decision by the people making this movie. Oh, Susan and Reed might have a romance. Actually only 2 scenes of them interacting alone. Oh, Victor hates the government dude and keeps throwing him shade. We don't know why, and they don't tell us, and it's not focused on for the rest of the movie. The scenes individually are really hard to critique apart from the fundamental problem that I've already talked about, because it's like multiple plot lines stitched together from multiple different movies. It creates a really fucking weird experience that I haven't seen in any other movie. Anyway, who cares about that? Time for some top quality banter.
You know who built the Apollo spacecraft? Went to the moon?
Yeah, your mama.
Anyway, after they create the teleporter, the government is going to get an astronaut. But then Doom's like, we need to be the first people on the moon to imprint our legacy, because it was our dream and not some random astronauts, so we should be remembered for creating this. Now, I'll give the movie a little credit. That is a really cool idea, but in the movie, it kind of falls apart. It doesn't align with any of the characters' motivations at all. Johnny is only building the teleporter to get his car back, and Reed is just an insane man with a fixation on building a teleporter, not necessarily going through the other side. So why do they all instantly think this is such a great idea? They build this up as some epic moment. They're finally going to the other dimension, but it just comes across as a bunch of drunk losers doing stupid stuff. Also, it's really weird that Ben instantly says, sure, I'll go to the alternate dimension with you, when he knows they're all drunk. This is a clear hazard risk considering he knows nothing about the alternate dimension with green lava, but he has no qualms about going. Oh yeah, guys, he's actually in the movie again. I thought you'd like to know. Okay. How do people in the building not even notice that the quantum gate is active? Actually, sorry, I am lying. Susan's the only one that realizes this, but she doesn't even tell the people working with her. Why would you not get all the help you need to get your brother and your friends out of a fucking dimension? Why do you just not care about your family? I think now is a good time to say as well that the Quantum Zone looks like a generic CGI mush pit. Look at this thing, it's just a bunch of rocks with green sludge coming out of it. They keep trying to convince us that this is some awesome place with science jargon. The energy is alive, there's no expenditure, but all I see is sludgy Play-Doh. Whatever, the planet explodes and Reed does nothing while Dr. Doom falls into a vat of slime and everyone explodes. Haha, joking, that's what I wish happened because I've been writing about these terrible movies for the past 3 weeks. After the portal explodes, the Baxter lab has been completely destroyed and Reed sees his friends in utter agony as they are exposed to their powers for the first time. And this is the body horror stuff I was talking about beforehand. It's so bizarre why they chose such a dark tone for this scene because it comes out of literally nowhere. The story so far has had a relatively light tone. Literally nothing bad has happened and everyone's happy, so putting this weirdly creepy scene of them being contained for their powers feels like total tonal whiplash. Also, the concept of body horror doesn't really work when you apply them to the Fantastic Four. Apart from Reed, it's really hard to make their powers seem grotesque. Johnny goes on fire, Ben is literally a rock, and Susan just turns invisible. Their powers and designs are meant to make them feel more colourful and vibrant, so you can't distort their appearances to do effective body horror, so they're designed to never really look that scary. And the scenes themselves are not written or shot in a very menacing way. They just boil down to a character moaning a lot and shouting, "Please help me." They play sinister music to cover this problem, but it's kind of obvious to see how little effective horror there is at play. But basically, these scenes show that the four have now got their powers and Reed escapes and ditches Ben. It's kind of hilarious. Ben is literally stuck to the floor and is now a rock while he begs for help from Reed, and he goes... Now Susan's dad essentially works for this guy to make deals with the government so that Ben can work for them. But what's next? A completely different movie.
What the heck?
It's pretty clear by now that this is where the reshoots really started taking place. Because instead of the body horror plot it was clearly trying to set up, we now skip to a year later where the superheroes are used by the government. Why do you skip a year into the future? Before we were shown that you guys couldn't control your powers and were literally burning alive and unconscious, but let's forget about that. Skip a year later where everything's okay. Also, it drops the fact that the government is now using Ben and about to use Johnny in the field, but they don't explain why Franklin and the Four would fucking do that. that. Reed's also been on the run for a year, which makes no sense. He was a high school student with inflating arms, so why is he so good at evading the US government for a year? Let alone how would he even be able to escape the government building he was trapped in? Surely security cameras or the guards would have seen him. But this doesn't even matter because Susan just tracks him instantly. The whole US government can't find him for an entire year, but as soon as this guy joins the picture, you find him within like 10 seconds. She's not an omniscient being. How does she have so much more brain capacity than anyone else? And then the government find Reed and he decks the 5 soldiers they sent, but Ben is also sent along. It's actually so funny how little effort Ben takes in capturing him. Reed stands still and the Rock headbutts him. So after a year of hiding undetected from the government, Susan instantly tracks him and Ben just headbutts him as soon as they start fighting. So like a normal person, Ben is pissed because Reed dragged him into another dimension, which transformed him into a rock and then ditched him when shit hit the fan. But what makes it even worse is that on the plane ride home, Reed keeps trying to feed Ben the same bullshit that, oh, I'm gonna make you better again, when the last time he said that, he left the country to live in Panama. This is manipulation at its finest, and somehow he is meant to be one of our heroes. What makes it even worse is that after this, Ben just disappears from the movie until the final battle. So it's like the movie, like Reed, is just completely ignoring him despite being a complete victim throughout all of this. Whatever. Susan then tells him in the next scene that you have to help us with the machine to teleport us into the quantum zone. And then Reed's like, actually we're being controlled by the government, so how about I don't? But then Susan says, do it. And then Reed's like, okie dokie. And the government just instantly ask him to work on the teleporter as well. Why? He is a fugitive. He escaped your facility. Why is every government official so fine with him instantly being put to work on the machine? Also, each of the Fantastic Four are so happy to see him back, even though he literally ditched them all. Johnny literally gives him a hug and brushes her off like it's nothing. No one even seems to be mad, and everyone acts like he's been in that place forever when he's been gone for the whole year. And Reed within 10 minutes just fixes the machine. Dr. Storm had been working on it for like a whole year and couldn't complete it, but then Reed just prances along and fixes it like it's as easy as taking a poo. How is this madman with an obsession with a time machine so much smarter than one of the best scientists in the world? He is a baby Jesus with the flip. But you know what I really need now is another generic Johnny and Dad scene. Johnny's like, I have my powers for a reason. But then his dad's like, you need to listen to me. And then Johnny's like, listening to you is what got me here in the first place. But in the literal previous line of dialogue, he talks about how he likes the superpowers, but then he blames his dad for the superpowers. Someone's clearly forgetting to proofread the scripts because they just don't make sense. And finally, after all this time, they send astronauts to the new quantum realm that Reed built in like 10 minutes. And oh my days, Dr. Doom is alive! Whoa! Look at this. The characters don't even care that their friend who they thought was dead is still alive a year later. I hate this movie.
Hell no, man. What the fuck, man? Get your ass.
It's actually kind of hilarious that they reveal him as an alien now because we haven't seen him for like 40 minutes and so much time has passed in the movie without even mentioning him. It feels like the characters themselves didn't even care because he evaporated like ages ago and they didn't even react. No one was crying, no one was sad, they just moved on. Anyway, they obviously bring him back, but within 30 seconds, Dr. Doom exposits about how the place gave him power and strength, and now he begins a new plot to destroy the planet to protect his own. Why? Within a span of 2 minutes, we are told that Victor Von Doom is alive and now wants to save a different planet that we're given no background on at all. If you have brain cells, you know why this is stupid, but I'm going to explain it anyway. We don't know why he's crazy, we don't know why he loves this other dimension so much, we don't even know how he's alive, but the movie's not going to explain it to us, so what can we do? It's the Fantastic Four's favorite thing to do anyway, not explain anything. Okay movie, Victor really did just turn from normal guy to other planet obsessed psycho off screen in the last 20 minutes of the movie. Also, I would like to mention that Victor Von Doom's suit looks like dog poo. He looks like a person made out of paper mache. And as a means of protecting his planet, he kills random people, blowing their brains inside of their heads through telekinesis. I love tonal whiplash, don't you? Also, I love how he kills everyone except the Fantastic Four. Bro was like, I need to avoid their invisible plot armor before I bust. Doom is trying to suck everything into the quantum realm using a black hole, so the heroes have to figure out how to stop Doom because he's the power source. But oh no, Doom has too much power. Reed's too fat to move his ass off the floor. Ben's being surrounded by rocks even though he is a rock. But then they defeat him with the power of friendship using fake movie lasers. Yay! I love in the action sequences how they don't even move while fighting. They just stand around. Look at their feet. They barely even shift. Look, I'm being serious. They just don't move. Let's just move on to the final scene. So to end the movie, the government just bend over and let the Fantastic Four have billions of dollars in total freedom, even though they're the fucking government and would never do that. But we end the movie with perhaps the worst ending in cinematic history. Just roll the clip.
Gotta say, it's fantastic.
Say that again.
It's fantastic.
Guys, I got it. Ready?
I don't know what to say anymore. That ending used up my final brain cell. My life devastated. My mental health shattered. My body in absolute disarray. These 3 movies are the single worst experiences mankind could have ever experienced. We had the Depression. We had the Black Plague. We had Morbius. But nothing can top these utter piles of poo as the worst things I have ever seen. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time. Subscribe so I can fund my brain surgery. The whole trilogy gets a hazardous to your health sticker out of 10, and now I'm going to feel the sun against my face for the first time in 2 weeks. So don't watch these movies or form your own opinions on them because they are terrible.